Chapter 11. An Indian Handshake. We're on our way again. I'm leaning against the rough pinewood wall of the stall where Dakota is standing. Every now and then he whinnies soft-like, and I give him a handful of hay. A mound of that sweet-smelling grass was forked in with us before the call of all aboard. After dinner, which was real fine, pot roast with onions and carrots, potatoes, and enough thick brown gravy to float a battleship, we'd been offered a better ride. "You can join us in the caboose," Wilkie, the mustached man, told us. "You earned that." Pop shook his head. "Horses will be happier having us with them." Plus, Pop needed more time alone with me before we got to Kalagi. "Classes won't be hard for you, Cal," he says. The train is rolling across an endless expanse of brown and yellow plains. Not a patch of green to be seen. Off in the distance are big black clouds, no doubt chock full of dust. Not headed our way, though. Fixing to dump a few thousand acres of Oklahoma soil into the Gulf of Mexico. We study those clouds a bit before Pop turns back to me. "No," Pop says, "academic classes ought to be easy. You learned a lot from your old school. More than most high school students at Kalagi did in my time. Matter of fact, unless they got a better batch than when I was there, you may find you know more than your academic teachers do as far as the 3 R's go. At Kalagi, the big emphasis is on industries. The agricultural side of things there is top-notch. Modern farming, in fact. There's where you can get an education. Pay attention, Cal, and you'll learn a thing or two we can use when we have a farm again." Pop pauses. He looks off to his right as he does when he's visiting someplace in his memory. "The first thing they are going to do is boil you up. Strip you, scrub you clean, run a metal comb soaked with kerosene through your hair to get rid of nits and lice, even though you don't have any." Pop looks at me. "They'll cut your hair, too. Real short. Can you handle that?" I nod, but I feel like I've been gut shot. Cut off my hair? I resist the impulse to pull out Mom's comb or run it back across my head. I know that might make Fat Pop feel bad. A man can stand almost anything as long as it's not forever. That's what I tell myself. I have to come to terms with this. It'll be over before all that long, just a few months. Pop will get his bonus money, come back and get me. I'll grow my hair back then. We'll start a whole new life on a new piece of land. 100 acres with a barn, a team of horses, a cow or two to milk, and chickens to give us eggs. Out in the country, but not so far from town that we can't go in on a Saturday night to a movie house and see the latest Tom Mix cereal. Maybe go to an ice cream parlor and... You hear what I just said, son? I focus my eyes away from that dream and look at Pop. He knows I have been off somewhere in my mind. I would never lie to him. So I shake my head no. Pop smiles. "I was just saying you better be prepared for 3 things, Cal. First is to start marching come tomorrow. They'll have you in a uniform and bugle you up before dawn. Second thing is when they feed you, don't hold back. No such thing as table manners at Kalagi. Grab what you can as soon as it hits the table, otherwise you're sure as shooting going to get thin." Pop pauses again and looks at his hands. "Last thing is, you've got to be prepared to fight. The big boys won't pick on you. It'll be the ones your age." Pop holds up his hands, makes them into fists. "Unless things have changed one hell of a lot, they won't be pulling knives or using any weapons. No biting or eye gouging or hooking. No ganging up or kicking while you're down." Pop smiles. "They won't fight like white men. They'll fight fair. But they will be trying to get their licks in. So you fight hard too. Think you can do that?" "Yes," I reply, which is not exactly the truth. Pop has tried to teach me boxing, but it's not something I learned all that well. I don't like the idea of hitting anyone. At my old school, I only ever got into one fight. It was during recess with a bigger boy a year older than me. He was bullying the 3 second graders, keeping them off our one swing. When I told him to stop, he cocked his fist and threw a punch at me. I knew in my head what I should do, step aside and let the punch go by me like Pop taught. Then maybe throw a left hook. Except I just froze. All I did was stand there. Luckily for me, what he punched was my stomach and not my head. Unluckily for him, What he hit was my belt buckle. So it hurt him a lot more than it did me, especially since it was a pretty big buckle and I've always had strong stomach muscles. That blow just pushed me back a step and I stood there looking at him. "Oh, man," he groaned, shaking his fist. "I'm done. I give." It all only took a second and was over before any of the teachers saw anything, so I didn't get in trouble. That was only a month before our school got closed down forever. Pop settles back. Both of us are sitting in the open boxcar door, knees drawn up to our chests. You don't want to let your legs dangle outside a fast-moving freight. It's a good way to get yanked out if there's a post or a signal near the track. More than one beginner has seen their hoboing career come to an end that way. Behind us, the horses are making soft sounds. Every now and then, one knocks a hoof against a stall as they move about. They're just shifting positions, contented and quiet. I take a deep breath. The scent of horses is something I've always loved. Being here with them should make me feel at ease as the miles go rolling by. But it doesn't. I don't feel right. It's almost like just before I came down with the chicken pox. My head is throbbing, and there's a sensation like a knotted rope in my belly. Pop says I'm Indian, but I've never felt like an Indian, never thought of myself that way. I just want to be myself, just Cal, not something strange as the other side of the moon. What I am is a gentleman of the road, a man with an ethical code, my pop's son. I don't want to be a stranger surrounded by folks who are likely going to despise me. I close my eyes, trying to shut off my thoughts. I count backward from 100. I do it twice, but I'm still awake. I try listening to the rhythm of the train's wheels. It's a metal melody that soothed me to sleep hundreds of times over the months we've been out on the road. Clickety-clack, 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 clickety-clack. But this time the lullaby of the rails is different. What I'm hearing is not the whir and rattle of steel on steel. Instead, it seems to be saying, "You're white, you're Indian. You're white, you're Indian. You're white, you're Indian." And then somehow, though I thought it impossible, I must have slept. When I open my eyes, we've almost stopped. The half-light of that time just before dawn is sifting through the boxcar door. Pop's not by my side. His warmth is missing, as well as the sound of his breathing, his familiar scent. A noise comes from behind me. It's just the horses stirring in their stalls. For a minute, I panic. Where's Pop? Did he leave me already? Cal. The boxcar door slides farther open. It's being pushed by Pop, who wasn't visible in the shadows. "We're here," Pop says. We're pulling into a small railway station. Arkansas City, the sign reads. The depot clock says it's 5 a.m. "Where's the school?" I ask. Pop chuckles. "This is as close as the train brings you to Kalagi. We're not even in Oklahoma yet. This is Arkansas." He looks to the south. "State line's that way. It's a 4-mile walk from here to the school." A square-built, spade-bearded man is waiting on the platform. He's walking towards us. "I am E. Wimslow," he says in a booming voice, not even waiting for the train to stop. "My company has been delegated the responsibility of receiving those mounts I was told you two would be accompanying." It seems they've telegraphed ahead, so Pop and I are not treated like bums. Instead, we help unload the horses, bringing them down the ramp with no trouble at all. They've gotten to know us real well in the time we've spent with them. Sleeping with a horse in its stall tends to relax it, makes it feel like you are sort of a family. As we lead them down the street, Mr. E. Wimslow never stops talking. Most of what he says is just idle chatter until he puts up a hand as we reach a stable. "My 2 hands and myself," he says, "will be handling it from here. We have the government contract with the school. We'll check the horses over, make sure they are sound, then stable them here for the night. This being Sunday, the Lord's day of rest, we shall not be bringing them to the school till the morrow. So, I thank you for your help." I guess this is where it ends for us as far as those horses. It's a disappointment for me. I feel so at ease with them. They're like old friends after our train ride together. I had this image in my mind of Pop and me riding into the school, everybody watching with their mouths open as we gallop up, whooping like wild cowboys. That kind of entrance might make it easier for those people I've never met to see me as somebody special, like Hoot Gibson or Ken Maynard. Not some random nobody who doesn't know who he is anymore. But no, we'll not be arriving at the Indian school on Shank's mare. Mr. E. Wimslow is shaking both our hands. He's grasping mine so firm I feel like my fingers are being crushed. However, I do not wince or show any sign of pain. Here, my lads, he says, releasing me from his iron grasp. He reaches into his breast pocket, pulls out 2 coins, slaps the shiny silver dollar into Pop's hand and the 50-cent piece onto my own arching palm. Then he turns and closes the stable door, leaving us on the outside. Pop leans over my way. One more thing to remember, Cal, he says out of the corner of his mouth. Notice how Mr. E. Wimslow grabbed your hand in that vice grip of his? I look at my hand, wiggling my fingers to make sure they all still work. White man handshake. One way white men show how much power they've got. In the white world, you always have to prove yourself. Everything is a competition. It's not like it is with the old-time Indians who knew sharing was more important than wealth or power. I bite my lip as Pop says that. Ever since he's told me his big secret, there's been a change in the way he talks about things. Like talking about white folks as if they're different from him and me. Pop holds out his right hand. Show me how I taught you to shake. I reach out my hand and grasp his, just firm enough to hold on, our hands relaxing together, neither of us struggling for control. You see, Pop says, you shake hands like someone who trusts the other and doesn't have to prove he's better. That's an Indian handshake.